Good evening and welcome. I'm Sheila Balgobin and I am the Dream Decipherer, and I help you to crack the code of your sleep and dreams so you can sleep sound and dream deep. This evening, I just have one dream, a little dream, but as we know, little dreams carry a lot of information. So let's see what we have for tonight. The dreamer reports that a friend invited her to attend to see a film with a couple of other friends, and he had also invited someone, a friend of theirs, who was suffering with depression and was apparently out of work. So what the person who was organizing this film party asked everyone to chip in a little bit of money to enable this man to be able to attend this film party. So that's the first section, and it's noted that the organizer of this film party was wearing a burgundy colored tracksuit. The dreamer then goes on to report that next door to the movie theater, there was an old fashioned bathhouse. And um, not everybody may be familiar with those, but particularly in the Victorian period, in the late 19th and early 20th century, these bathhouses, public bathhouses, were where people went to do their laundry, to have a shower, etc. And some of them, actually, in terms of architecture, are quite beautiful because of the period that they were built in. But in any case, there was this old swimming bath or public bath next door to the cinema. But the toilets had been closed because of COVID concerns. But the pool was kept open, but that was closed down as well, because what you had was people peeing in the pool because because there were no toilets, or they were just being yobbish, being like acting like juvenile delinquents. So they eventually ended up closing the pool as well. So the building was not being used anymore, in other words. So what is this all about? I mean, COVID is popping up everywhere in people's dreams in all kinds of ways, whether, insect infestations or other kinds of ways. I mean, sometimes it's more obvious, sometimes more subtle. In this case, there's actually seems to be two references to the virus. But well, as we pick it apart, we'll see what's going on. Now, the first thing is that the dreamer's friend has invited a group of people to go out to the movies, just have a movie date. Now, that's kind of a reference, I think, an oblique reference to COVID, because under the lockdown rules, movie theaters and things like that are closed. So that outlet of being able to go out with your friends and hang out and have a beer or whatever it is pretty much closed affair. There's nothing to be done about that. That's definitely a no under lockdown rules. Now, there's another possible reference to the impact of COVID, is that they had invited a friend and had to take up a collection for him to be able to afford to get into the movie, and it was also very depressed. And depression is soaring. I just read an article of today or yesterday, that for 7 to 12-year-olds, the levels of depression are soaring because they're unable to handle not being in contact with their friends, not being able to run around and burn up calories and energy. And that the 7 to 12-year-olds are really, really suffering because they can understand to a certain extent why things are the way they are, but they still can't go the next step and process those feelings very well. So depression is something that is becoming much more widespread. The counseling services, which were already overstretched, are even more stretched because the demand is just going up. And trying to get help through your doctors is virtually impossible because you can't see your doctors anymore. It's really a quite dire situation. But what's interesting about this part of the dream is that the friends all agreed to chip in a bit of money to buy this movie ticket for the friend who's depressed. And that's something that's part of the side effect of this lockdown process, or semi lockdown, or in and out lockdown. I can't keep up anymore, is that it can actually stimulate people to behave in the best way possible, looking out for neighbors and shopping for them, for example, especially the elderly, sharing things with people. I mean, even at a distance, there are people that are still reaching out to others and connecting with other people in a meaningful way, which is one of the best things that have come out of this pandemic. Now, my questions start to come in little ways. And the first of my questions to the dreamer is, the host of the event was dressed in a burgundy tracksuit, and I just wonder, well, the implication being that it's in a casual dress and people are kind of dressed down, and which has become more prevalent these days. With as I see some of my neighbors, even in the well, before it got cold, would be standing outside in the backyard, you know, in their pajamas, basically. So people have become less buttoned down, you might say, and a bit more relaxed about that. Um, but what do tracksuits, and particularly a burgundy color tracksuit, mean for the dreamer? Is the color something about the color that's significant? And what is that? Now, interestingly enough, what came to my mind is that burgundy, or slightly darker magenta, is actually a color associated with the crown chakra in terms of energy, and the color that kind of radiates from that particular energy center. And the crown chakra, just above the head, depending on the particular esoteric tradition you're talking about, it may be white in color or it may be magenta. So I just wonder if there's something around that for the dreamer. Um, Now, there's go from a less more subtle references to the virus to some that are much more obvious, which is the old swimming bathhouse, which was next door to the cinema. And those, there's still a few around that exist, public baths where people, I mean, they've updated them a bit, but people don't necessarily need to go there to have showers anymore. But they are largely representative of a bygone era. And this during a time when there were people may not have had indoor plumbing. So there's the implication of this bathhouse as being something a bit old fashioned and outdated. Um, there's also, I mean, in times past, there was also this association between um, gay sex and bathhouses. So that there's different associations with it. But what does the bathhouse represent to the dreamer in particular? Now, why was the bathhouse closed? Well, it was originally the toilets inside, which were open to the public, were originally closed because of fears around COVID. Transmission of germs on public, on public in public toilets. But the pool Also was an incidental fallout, if you will, of the virus because of antisocial behavior. People were taking a piss in literally in the pool. And so whether that was out of desperation, out of meanness, or laziness of planning their trip better, they ended up closing the pool as well. So not only that people didn't have the facilities available in terms of this bathhouse, but the relaxation of being able to swim was also taken away. And this was done despite requests, I guess, from the local local authorities to keep it clean and not to use the pool as a toilet. Now, there's something also around the issue of toilets. I mean, you think of their principal function is to get rid of waste. But you have a double loss here. You have a loss of being able to get rid of the garbage, get rid of the waste, but you also have a loss of being able to get rid of stress, in that people could swim in the pool and kind of relax themselves, but that's all gone. There's also perhaps something else that the dreamer may look at in terms of the pool. The pool, in an essence, could be a microcosm of the unconscious mind, and not just the unconscious mind, but the collective unconscious, because of the pool was a public one, which means that every Tom, Dick, and Harry, and Jane can go into the pool. So there's something about the collectiveness of it, or publicness of it, that could represent perhaps collective ideas, collective ways of doing things. But basically, the uh, can it be a stand-in perhaps for society itself in a microcosm. There's also, if you look at the symbolism of water representing the unconscious, water representing spirit, water representing many things, and to find that water is being taken away, the people are literally being left high and dry. And so there's also, in terms of this collective thinking, that the COVID concerns around the world, express people's fears, their concerns, the fallout from COVID, thousands, millions, billions probably now, people losing jobs that may never come back again because of COVID. People worried about infecting people or being infected. The debate about to vaccinate or not to vaccinate, to wear a mask, not to wear a mask. There's just so much, so many things troubling the waters, the mental waters of people's minds these days, that the pool literally can't contain it all, and it's actually dried up. There's also an implication here of somehow of polluting the waters, muddying the waters, and there's a lot of confusion around COVID and how to treat it and what to do, and are these vaccines going to work, and who's going to get it, and all of the rest of it. So that there's a lot of mental pollution, contamination going on in the pool, the collective mental pool of the world. And there's also, a bit of a play on words here, because, you have people who are getting pissed on, so to speak, by the powers that be, as I call them. I mean, the people in power, whether they be politicians, whether they be religious leaders, whether they be this, that, or the other. But the people who are controlling the reins of power, and basically riding roughshod over the rest of us. So there's something a little bit about the people with the antisocial behavior who are taking a leak in the pool, literally just pissing on everybody. I mean, there's no other way to put it. And there is, I think, a growing feeling around the world of people, the so-called little people that make up 98% of the world's population, that they are being pissed on by their leaders, and stepped on and trampled on and murdered and all the rest of it. So there's the references here, or implications with regard to current events, seems to be all over this dream. And but what it's interesting about that it shows the dichotomy of it all, the two-ness, the duality of everything, because not only does it show people acting at their best, on the flip side, it shows that just like life, there's going to be people that are going to be on the other side, the dark side, whatever side you want to call it. It's going to be the opposite of what somebody else is thinking. And it's exactly that. You have people acting at their best and people acting at their worst. And then maybe there's some that in the middle that are just indifferent either way. But I thought I would end this with the prologue from a very famous book. I remember it from my English lit classes years ago, which, though it was written in the 19th century, seems to be very appropriate now. And it's from A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens. And it says, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times. Everybody remembers that famous line. It was the age of wisdom, it was the age of foolishness. It was the epoch of belief, it was the epoch of incredulity. It was the season of light, it was the season of darkness. It was the spring of hope, like that vaccine, yeah? And it was the winter of despair. The setting of the book was around the French Revolution, but it seems like we're still living in revolutionary times. And as the French like to say, plus ça change, plus c'est la même chose. So the more things change, the more they stay exactly the same. And so it is. Thank you so much for watching and listening. Have a great evening and rest of the week. And I'll see you again soon. Take care. Bye-bye.